Hi, I'm John F. Allen.
And I'm R.J. Sullivan.
And we're the Two Towers.
Are we ready to talk about episode 10?
Yes, sir.
All right. Blood of Patriots. Now, in this episode, Ed must initiate peace talks with the Krill. So, as you know, the Krill are the alien species that are, as I've said before, like Romulans and the Klingons, if you kind of, or Cardassians rather, if you kind of put them together and add a little Klingon in for good measure. But they're very warlike, very combative. So imagine having a peace talk with them. It'd almost be like sitting down and trying to talk peace with Genghis Khan. Probably not going to start off well, go well, or end well. Just off the top of the bat, you're going to be thinking, wow, this is really beyond an uphill battle. I thought that this was an interesting episode in that it was very Star Trek-y in how it went, how it was written, and how the characters interacted. What did you think, RJ?
Well, this one touched some personal buttons, and I mean, my father is a Vietnam vet, you know. That conflict resolved itself when I was very young, but I remember hearing the comments of the soldiers, people who were former POWs, people who had this hate for the enemy still, even when we were, coming to peace with that nation. And now, of course, they are amongst our allies, and that's something that's been true for quite a long time, but there's still that old anger. Well, this is fresh anger. We have someone who was a prisoner of war, who had been captured, who had just escaped just as they're trying to sign the peace treaty, and he's still at war. He still wants to strike back, and the tragedy going on here is not only has a good man been destroyed by what he's experienced as a prisoner, but he was going to act against what would be best for the Union, best for the Krill, and he's in favor of attack and protracting the war to get revenge, as opposed to doing what would be the larger picture right thing. And it speaks so much to what we've seen go on with actual soldiers, where the enemy is no longer the enemy, and now we have to kind of change over time how we perceive those things. This is another one that is very complicated for something that's supposed to be a spoof program. They took on a lot, and I thought they handled it extremely well. I think that the actor that plays Gordon had a lot to portray here as the best friend of that character. I really thought he gave a fantastic performance in this episode, trying to defend his friend, but at the same time, kind of having to betray him because he knows that what the guy's doing is wrong, and their past history doesn't matter if he's going to continue on this path of violence. At the end, he says something about, my friend died years ago. That wasn't my friend anymore. And it's very profound, again, for a show that you wouldn't expect to find that kind of depth.
Yes, I agree. And I think that it kind of sets things up for future seasons, hopefully season 3, as it comes around with the Union's dealings with the Krill. I think that we're going to see, I hope that we're going to see in season 3 more Union starships, and maybe be introduced to more crews from those starships, and get a sense of expanding the universe, as it were,
Sure.
within the Orville. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
And I don't remember if it's specifically stated, but we don't know if this peace treaty maybe Ed helped bring that about by his actions a few episodes ago. I'd like to think so.
Yes, and it speaks to his character development over the course of these 2 seasons thus far. Ready to tackle episode 11?
Yep.
All right, episode 11, lasting impressions. So, this particular episode I found to be a really, it spoke to who Gordon was. It really gave you, it was this first time where he was someone who you saw from, who's usually the prankster, the joke maker or whatnot. You saw him in a more dramatic and serious light on a personal level, beyond the previous episode, but the stakes were high for him on an emotional level. Basically, he opens a time capsule from 2015, and he begins to fall in love with a holographic projection of what this person from the past, who she was, and how this would have played out, and why she was who she was based upon what actually happened in her life, and how that would have changed who she was if this were all real. And it's amazing to think that, you know, when you look at how events in our lives shape the rest of our lives, one simple thing, meeting one person, if you had not met that person, how vastly different your life would have been.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah. So that's an amazing concept for me. It always has been. Little trivia to note that there's a character named Dr. Sherman on this particular episode, played by Tim Russ, who also was on the Voyager, Star Trek Voyager show as Lieutenant Tuvok. So just an interesting little tidbit of information. What do you think about this episode, RJ?
Tim Russ seems to be somebody who he'll be in a lot of different things. He likes the Star Trek fan stuff. I've seen him in a lot of those fan series and that sort of thing, which, you know, is pretty cool. Something he wouldn't necessarily have to do. But coming back to the actual episode, it's another sentimental one. It doesn't necessarily make a lick of sense, and that's fine. It doesn't have to. It's this idea of, I mean, we've seen it tackled in the Next Generation to some extent, this idea of what if a computer can create a simulation that is so real to you that you end up having an emotional attachment to it, even though it's not based on reality. And this one, you know, the approach is a little bit different, but I liked it. I thought that Gordon had a true emotional journey from beginning to end. I like the way there are moments where he becomes selfish in the relationship and others where he becomes more giving. And ultimately he realizes he's going down an unhealthy path, and he has to find some way to kind of end it and move and find a way for him to move on with his life. I think it's as weird as it was, it just worked really well. It was a little sappy and romantic. I'd like to know if he's really singing in this, because he's got a decent voice. And yeah, very much enjoyed it. It's one of those you could just pop on, watch for an hour, and exactly what I'm talking about, where, you know, I had a fun hour there and had a complete storytelling experience from beginning to end, and then you can turn it off and get on with the rest of your day. So was one of those nice little gems. And another thing, it's not special effects heavy. It's not ultra dramatic. It's not about a lot. And I think that's really cool. Some of these don't have to be about a lot to still be interesting stories. And I think that's something else that this show understands.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that when it all is said and done, this particular show, the Orville, is it just keeps getting better to me. And I think that even with episode like this, that isn't like fantastic, earth-changing writing or whatnot, it pulls the right strings with the viewer and at the right time. And I can only continue to sing its praises with regards to that. And by now, boys and girls, we've pretty much completely done away with the dick jokes. So FYI. Yeah, just because there's such a dynamic shift in how this show is being written and being portrayed. So we're going to move on to episode 12, and that's The Sanctuary. So this particular episode has a Moclan baby girl being smuggled to a colony. As you know,
of all Moclan women, yeah.
Yes, as you know, the Moclans are, stringent on remaining all male, and it's taking the Little Rascals motto, "No girls allowed," to a level that goes above and beyond practicality, let alone sanity. But I digress. Back to the episode. I have to say that, to me personally, this was one of, if not the favorite episode of this season for me. And it has to do with how the society is framed and how the struggle is real for the characters here. So you've got basically you've got Moclan delegates who are sharing weapons technology improvements with the Union, specifically the ship, the Orville. Also, as a fun trivia note, before I get too far, Jonathan Frakes directed this episode, and we have a character, one of the Moclan delegates, who is portrayed by Tony Todd, who you may know as Candyman, who has also portrayed Klingon characters in Star Trek, The Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine. We also have two admirals who make appearances on this episode. One is portrayed by Ted Danson from Cheers, and the other is Kelly Hu, who has been on the show before, but just her versatility as an actress, I mean, goes without saying, but it was great to see her. And she's no a stranger to science fiction geeky stuff herself. So just thought I'd give you that little bit of trivia there.
Is this the one with Marina Sirtis?
I'm not
certain.
Maybe. Yes, he plays the teacher. Yes, absolutely. Okay. So we've got another cameo from someone. We got the Star Trek reference there. Star Trek: The Next Generation. So yeah, wow, good catch there, RJ.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
But anyway, the secretive pair who are there as delegates, they lock themselves up in their chambers there on the ship and use some abnormal energy, and Bortus is sent to check it out. He does this in opposition to his mate Clyden, encouraging their son Tova to openly despise females. Now, this is another trope or within the Moclan society, you know, that kind of mirrors things in the past for humans with, you know, not only is it no girls allowed, but anything she can do, I can do better, you know, type situation, because, you know, you don't want to be like a girl and that kind of thing. So anyway, they discover that these delegates are actually hiding a Moclan female baby, trying to use their mission as delegates aboard the ship to get this baby to safety with to a secret place that's inhabited by female Moclan rebels. And they've developed this whole hidden society of females who are proud to be females and have shown that females are not inferior and have in fact made a great life for themselves. And that's why this particular episode is one of my favorites, if not the favorite, because of how this society is revealed as, you know, and then when it's discovered, who they are and where they are and what they are, whatnot, Mercer encourages them to seek Union membership as a sovereign republic. So I thought that that was an interesting thing that could play out later on too. What do you think, RJ?
I love the idea. I love the idea that there is a, you know, there's babies being smuggled off the planet to go to their own colony on another planet. I love that idea. I think we've seen that played out here in the 20th century of various societies that unfortunately, where that's been necessary for humanitarian reasons, where that's had to happen in the past and in the present as well, that we've seen these situations happen. I wasn't thrilled with Ed's decision to report it when he found it. I suppose this might mean that, you know, I would not be the most by the book captain if I were in that command chair, but I think this was a situation where he should have just said, not my circus, not my monkeys. I didn't see anything. I'm not telling anybody anything, because, you know, we knew that the Union had a treaty with the Mocklids. So, I mean, I was sitting there predicting exactly what's going to happen as soon as he reports it. Obviously, this is a civil war situation. This is one faction of the Mocklins are now aware of another faction of the Mocklins that they didn't know about before, which only happened because Ed reported it. And it ended up, you can't, the Union was put in a situation where it was going to pick a side. Well, if you're going to pick a side, do you go with your ally, or do you put yourself in a situation where you're going, basically, exactly all the complications of what I thought would happen if he reported it actually happened. And I remember sitting there just kind of yelling at the TV, dude, just move on, just don't tell anybody. And to the episode's credit, it played out all of those complications exactly as they would happen. It doesn't shirk away from saying, okay, the captain reported it, here's what happened, here's all the terrible political consequences of that. And also, Clyden's a terrible person. Can we just say Clyden, by this point, just horrible? So, because he's the one that gives it, you know, he's the one that tells the captain and puts the captain in that situation. But I digress. So, I mean, if I were in the captain's chair, I probably would have just allowed the Underground Railroad to happen. And I would have been like, okay, I know nothing. I saw nothing.
I think
going to move on.
I think it's safe to call Clyden the Mocklin version of Karen. If you were, if you were, if you were going to try to frame the character, yes, he is definitely the Karen or Chad, however, which way you want, of the Mocklin race, because you just want to slap him
Yeah.
And
I
even
think
Borges wants to slap him, and I think did
yeah.
in one episode. But anyway, we won't get into
So I think
domestic violence.
yeah. I think this was a situation where I think if Ed had thought it through, he maybe regretted reporting it because the can of worms that opened up when he did that and how complicated things got, you know. Um I just thought, man, if he'd have just not said anything, then more good could have been done sooner. Ultimately, things kind of resolved, but you know, I just I thought I did like the idea. I would have handled it differently than Ed did. So that's all I'll say about that.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
Next episode is tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and this sees the crew uh, uh, with Isaac being the person in charge of this. They're experimenting with time travel concepts, and something goes wrong, and basically there's a duplicate of Kelly that's created, but this duplicate is from 7 years in her past. So you've got present Kelly and you've got 7 years in the past Kelly, and taking into consideration Kelly's relative age, 7 years for her and maybe even Ed to a certain extent is a decent chunk of time in their development. So it's like taking somebody who's 32 back to their 25-year-old self, which is kind of where this was with regards to Kelly's character. And although 7 years doesn't seem like a lot of time, especially the older you get, the difference between a 25-year-old and a 32-year-old can be worlds apart, depending upon what they've experienced in their lives to mature them. That being said, this Kelly from 7 years past hasn't gone through the breakup and all the other problems with Ed, so there's a different perspective there, and it caused a lot of problems. Now, this episode was neat in a way. I enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite. It kind of got like, okay, this is cool. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like, okay, this is really awesome. Definitely worth watching though. So I'm not saying that. What did you think about it, RJ?
I think I liked it a bit more than you did. I liked it a great deal. I thought that, well, number one, you know, I'm an Orphan Black fan. I always like to watch the visual effects when you watch an actress play against herself and or actor, which I can't think of that happening as much. But, you know, they had some fun with that. The scenes with young Kelly and older Kelly acting with each other, and the photographic effects were very well done. I thought that the actress handled both parts quite well. Once again, Ed makes some really bad decisions in terms of his love life. I can appreciate the idea of, well, hey, I have a second chance with the same woman again, so maybe I should see where that takes me, even though most of us know that would be a really bad idea. And then, but I like the idea of someone who can see their younger self and thinking, man, if I could just talk to myself and tell myself a few things, maybe I could change a few things. And I like that idea. I think a lot of people have that conversation with themselves sometimes. I thought there were some interesting ideas at play. Once again, Kelly, by the end of the episode, she makes one minor innocuous decision, which ends up possibly ruining everything in the universe, So that's kind of what leads us in. So I'm ready to move on to that then.
Okay. So that leads us to episode 14, The Road Not Taken. Now, since the previous episode leads into this episode, let me say I like this episode better than the previous episode. Basically because it kind of wraps things up and a little bit more. To me, it was more focused as a story. If that makes any sense to you, it just, to me, I found that I enjoyed. Not that I didn't enjoy the previous episode, I enjoyed this one a little bit more. I think the resolution of it kind of spoke to me. So what do you think, RJ?
Oh yeah, it was action packed. It delivered the hard hitting finish that you want for a show like this, especially when you're gonna take a time off. If I remember, this is the one where they kind of replicate the asteroid belt chase, that where they did some shots similar to the Empire Strikes Back, and they did them extremely well, which is great to see television production at that level.
Yeah.
That mind blowing. And I thought, again, the leap of faith, the idea of, if we don't know this is going to work, but let's just have that faith that we can make things better by taking this crazy chance. I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. I am an optimist by nature, and I think that the show tends to speak to that idea that sometimes you just gotta click your heels 3 times and make the wish and hope things that turn out okay. And then in this show, there's some validity to that. And if you're gonna have a show to escape, then this provides that escape. But I thought it worked well, and it wrapped up things very nicely to kind of put things on hold until the show comes back.
Same here. Well, that wraps up all the episodes for season 2. And I will let you know right off the bat, this is a vast improvement from beginning to end compared to season 1. And that's not to say, as if you watched our previous episode, you know that I gave season 1 a 4 out of 5 towers. But this episode, I'm giving 4.5 out of 5 towers. And that's because the episodes are better. They're much more well written. The cast is tighter. You know more about the characters. There's more at stake with this episode. They're daring. They're actually a little more action packed for me. But to coin my good friend RJ, it gave me an optimistic view of the future of the show. And that was the thing that pushed it a half tower forward for me, was because it left me really, really anticipating season 3. It was like, I liked the idea of the show from the beginning. I didn't know what to expect. I was invested early on where others weren't. By the time season 2 got here, I was really invested. When I watched season 2, I was like, oh, wow, this is doing all the things that I wanted it to do, and it's doing it right. And by the end of the season, I was chomping at the bit for season 3. So that's why I give this particular season of the Orville 4.5 towers. What's your take, RJ?
I'm going to go 4. And that I agree that season 2 was an improvement on season 1. I mean, that's definitely a recommendation. It'll be, I guess, a year and a half by the time this thing drops again. I think it's safe to say that we're going to be anxiously looking forward to season 3, and I look forward to having that conversation when it drops.
Absolutely. I want to thank our viewers for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Two Towers Talk Show. If you did, give us a like. Those likes do a lot, and we would love to get the analytics, the feedback to let us know what you guys think of what we're doing, and to get future episodes and stay in the loop for everything. Please subscribe to our show. And if you want to see what's going on with me, please visit my website, johnfallenauthor.com. And where can they reach you, RJ?
I'm at rjsullivanfiction.com.
All right, kids. Well, that just about wraps up everything. Please leave your comments. We would love to hear what you think of Season 2 of the Orville and how excited you might be for Season 3. And we will definitely be reviewing Season 3 after Season 3 arrives and has been aired. We're both looking forward to it. And we're both looking forward to seeing and visiting with you again in our next episode. So be sure to tune in. Again, subscribe so you can get everything. And thanks for tuning in. You guys stay safe out there. Bye.
The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by OG Nerds, a new social media community dedicated to nerds of a certain age, 40 and over, although all are welcome. Members are encouraged to share articles and links on their favorite nerdy topics such as animation, anime, art, books, writing, comics, manga, movies, music, sports, tech, science, TV, video games, RPGs, and more. Be sure to visit them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by Showtime Cinema in Mooresville, Indiana. Their friendly staff is always willing to go the extra mile to make your movie-going experience an enjoyable and memorable one. Enjoy the comfort of their new cushioned seating in their spacious auditoriums, and while you're there, be sure to stop by the concession stand and purchase some popcorn where real butter topping is an option. They're located at 300 South Bridge Street in Mooresville, Indiana. We hope to see you at the movies.